It's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is lather. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear or see lather used is to mean to form or cause to form a frothy white mass of bubbles. Now, I realize some words there might be a little difficult to understand, so I've got a picture. If you look at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you can see a person who's in the midst of washing their hands, right? And hopefully you can see kind of those white bubbles starting to form. That's our first definition. And connected to that first meaning, another way to use our verb lather is to describe the action of just rubbing soap onto some part of the body. A third way you might hear or see the verb lather used is to mean to cover something with a large quantity of something else. So with this particular definition, my mind immediately went to food. And I've seen certain chefs on television maybe use butter, and they use so much on a single piece of bread as they're making something. So we could use this verb to describe that action. They're lathering the bread in butter. They're covering it with a large quantity. You should know that lather is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all I need to do is add ing to form lathering. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by adding ed. Our base verb, lather, ends in a voiced R sound. This means that our ed ending is just going to make a D sound. And I'm not going to add an extra syllable as I say it. So it should sound like this: lathered, lathered. Okay. Now, you might encounter the phrasal verb lather up, and it can have a couple meanings, so I thought we'd discuss those and do a couple example sentences. The first way you might hear lather up used is, again, to mean to cover someone or something with foam, and usually this is from some type of soap. An example of this might be: the toddler doesn't sit still in the bathtub when his parents lather him up. So, right, we're talking about trying to cover the small child in soap. Now, a second way you might hear lather up used, and particularly in the summer months here, is to cover oneself in sunscreen. An example of this might be: parents should lather up their children before they head to the pool. Right? A good piece of advice for any of us who are going to be outside for a certain amount of time this summer. Now let's continue practicing our verb of the day. Today we'll practice our verb in the imperative and in the simple future. Let's start with the imperative. The imperative is another way to say a command. We're telling another person or group of people to do or not do a particular action. And the imperative in English is rather unique. Many times as I make example sentences, you see me beginning with I, you, he, we, etc., right? But we're not going to do that in the imperative. And that's because the subject is implied. Our subject here is always you. That could be one person if I'm speaking to or writing to one person, or it could be to a group. So if I want to begin an affirmative sentence, so I'm telling someone to do a particular action, I just start with the base verb. So I might say to someone, lather your hands for at least 20 seconds when washing your hands. Right? This is recommended advice, right? So we're telling someone, right, take soap, right, get those white bubbles to start forming. Now, if you want to make a negative imperative, so here we're telling someone not to do a particular action, you can begin your sentence with do not or don't, and then the base verb. Here's another example. Don't lather too much mayo onto the bread, right? So this is referring to another condiment, right? So here, maybe someone doesn't like it too thick, right? So we're telling them what to do. Don't put a lot, okay? Now, I've had students in the past tell me that telling someone to do a particular action can feel a bit rude. So, with the imperative, if it's more comfortable for you, you can put a please at the beginning of a sentence or a please at the end of a sentence, and that might feel a little more comfortable in terms of communicating with others. Now let's move on and talk about the simple future. Today we're going to make sentences that use will. And will is very common as people make promises or they make predictions. You might hear it sometimes with plans, a little less common there, but you might also hear it with offers. And the nice thing about making sentences in the simple future with will is that my structure is going to stay the same no matter what my subject is. So I'm going to have my subject, I'm going to have will, and then I'm going to have the base verb. Here's my first example. This shaving soap will lather and it won't dissipate quickly. So this might be a type of promise. We might hear lather used in connection to shaving different parts of one's body, right? So here, this might be a particular promise for a particular product, right? We're going to get a lot of that white kind of foamy bubbles, and those bubbles won't kind of disappear quickly. Now, if you want to make a negative simple future sentence, what you're going to do is start with your subject, use will not, and then the base verb. You might also hear the contraction won't for will not. You can see that in my example here. I won't lather on a lot of peanut butter. Okay, back to that third meaning, right? Spreading a large quantity of something over another surface. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple future. To do this, I start with will, then I have my subject, and then I have the base verb. So no suffixes, no special endings. An example of this might be, will shampoo bars lather up and rinse like liquid shampoos? This is a product I've seen a lot more of in the last year or two, maybe three. And many people have this question, right? When I wash my hair, right, you might think of lots of kind of soapy bubbles forming, but will a bar work in the same way? Will it give me that same sensation? Now let's spend a moment and talk about a related word to our verb. And that word is just the noun form. So exact same spelling, exact same pronunciation. The noun lather can also have a couple different meanings. The first way is, again, to talk about that frothy white group of bubbles that gets produced by soap or some other similar substance when it's mixed with water. An example of that might be rinse off the lather and dry your hands. Okay, so kind of another way to say clear the soap off your hands. Now, a second way you might encounter lather used is to talk about a statement of, or a state of agitation or nervous excitement. An example of this might be, he was worked into a lather before the meeting had even started. So here we might be describing someone who's kind of getting agitated, bothered, upset, even perhaps before a major event or major meeting. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.